Hey everybody, this is part two in a series I'm doing about the automatic oiler on my Stihl MS170 chainsaw. I had installed a new bar and chain on this chainsaw and also a new drive sprocket and the bearing for the drive sprocket. And after I installed it all, I discovered that quite possibly, more than likely, the reason why the previous one failed is because the automatic oiler was not working, and that's probably what caused it to get all worn out and trashed. So I took this all apart in the last video, and I cleaned the passageways and did a couple of things that I thought might correct the problem, only to find that it immediately stopped working or didn't really work correctly at all after I did that. So I decided to replace some of the components. Now, all of the components involved are sold by Stihl. You can get the genuine Stihl components. They're pricey because they're genuine Stihl components, and the other problem is that, as far as I know, and from what at least one dealer told me, there is no kit of parts or rebuild kit of parts. You have to order all the parts separately, buy the correct part number, and then basically put them in separately. The problem with that is the little oil pump alone, I think it's like $30 something. So what I ended up doing was I ended up searching and finding on eBay and other places on the internet, there are a number of individuals that are selling an aftermarket. They're selling aftermarket parts for these saws, and they're selling an aftermarket parts kit to fix the oiler. So this one I ordered from a guy right in Connecticut so that I could get it a little bit more quickly. And I think it only cost me like 12 or 15 bucks for the whole kit shipped. And of course he's just using first class mail because it's so light, so no problem there. Yeah, it says this is only 5 ounces, this package. So let's take a look at what's in the kit. And by the way, I want to mention that if you are willing to wait for what they call an e-packet from China, which is shipping from China, that you can actually get this even cheaper. I have a feeling that these parts I got from the gentleman in Connecticut here are the cheap Chinese parts, and what he's probably doing is he's probably just buying them in bulk from a Chinese supplier and then reselling them on eBay for a little bit of a markup. And that's completely understandable because he realizes that a lot of people just feel more comfortable buying from a US seller as opposed to buying from someone that's overseas or someone who is going to ship from overseas and make you wait for it. So this guy here is in East Hampton, Connecticut. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't have his permission to do so. But this is a Stihl oil pump, oil line, worm, gear, filter, fuel line. Fits MS 180, 170, 018, 017. And it's $12.95, and it's free shipping. So it's $12.95, and what it contains is it actually also contains the fuel line, which I've already replaced in this unit, okay, which is a common issue. The E10 additive fuels attack this line and turn it to mush, cause problems. And a in-tank fuel filter. The oil line, which can be a problem on these. My oil line seemed like it was okay, but... And then in this little package right here, we've got the oil pump, the oil pickup filter, and then this is the ubiquitous worm gear, they call it. So again, there's the fuel line, which I'm not going to use because I just replaced it. There's the fuel filter. So I'm going to keep these, obviously, and for if I need them at a later date. This is the oil line. This is the little pickup filter or screen that goes in the oil tank on the end of this line. This is the oil pump itself, and then this is the what they call the worm gear, and this is driven off of the clutch. What's nice about this design is that the oil pump is only activated when the clutch is spinning, and I guess on some cheaper models the clutch is driven off crankcase pressure or something like that on the motor, so that it keeps feeding oil even if the chain's not moving, if it's just sitting there idling, which is, I guess, causes a lot more oil mess and spillage and waste. Alright, so I'm going to do some basic disassembly off camera. If you need to know how to do this first part of this disassembly, please refer to my part 1 in this video series about the oiler. Alright, I've got it almost completely disassembled. I've got to still take the clutch off, which I got to use an impact driver to do, but just wanted to show, I just took the handle assembly off, which you have to remove because that covers this whole area here, and this is actually where the hose, where that oil line comes out of the tank right here, and it goes into the bottom of the pump right there. And the reason why I wanted to show it before I took it apart is because there's all oil sitting here, and it sure looks to me like that is not seated properly. So I don't know whether or not that popped out on me, or whether or not that is just, I think maybe that's actually a problem with the hose itself. The hose is no longer in really a good enough shape to stay in there. Yeah, that looks like that rubber barb on there is not really doing a good job of sealing anymore into where the pump is. Now I don't want to invert this with this disconnected, because if you've got plenty of oil in your oil reservoir, it's going to come out and make a big mess for you. Alright, so I just pulled this plug right here out of the tank, and turns out that the hole in the tank is actually large enough to even let the screen pickup fit right through, which makes that job a lot easier. So there's the new filter. So I'm going to put that right on the end of the hose. I think rather than put this on, instead of putting this on right now, I think I'll leave it off to the side out of my way. I'm going to have easier access to this pump. Okay, so in my last video I showed that basically to pull the oil pump out, you've got to thread in a screw, and then you grab the head of the screw and use that as a way to pull on that thing. So it'll take me a minute to find a screw that threads in there. Alright, this screw seems to screw in there okay. Okay, now the pump has to go in a very specific way. There's actually a slot right here on this side. Okay, and looking at it from the top, there's actually a little cutout area right there, and that faces to the left. And the way you know which way that goes is right here in the plastic. That's actually a little molded plastic reminder to tell you how that pump goes in. So you can actually see there's right there, that's the little notch I'm talking about, and you can see it's facing that way. Now I just was able to pull that out, but it just occurred to me that that gear on the top of the pump actually meshes with the worm gear that's behind here. So I would recommend that you have now I'm really losing oil. I recommend you drain the oil tank, and I recommend you take this clutch off and get the worm drive gear, this one right here, out of there first. Okay, just a reminder, this is left-hand thread. So we're actually going to turn it as if we were tightening it to loosen it. So that's that old worm gear, so we're going to take that out so that when I push the new oil pump up into position, I will not have a problem with it. So the oil pump, which I suspect is the culprit, either that or it's that hose. I don't really see anything physically wrong with it. I couldn't really tell, but it does have quite a bit of play in it. And the new one actually feels almost identical. So I'm not impressed. So again, this notch on the pump, according to my diagram, should face the rear. Not quite sure how far that's supposed to go in. I mean, it can only go in so far before it stops, and I'm pretty sure that there isn't a situation where it goes in too far. Yeah, it feels like it's bottomed out right there. So now I should be able to put my filter and hose assembly back in. Stop this gargantuan leak. Now this has a flat part right here that certainly appears that this is supposed to go and face right up against the... Oh, no, I must have been wrong. That flat part can't face up that way because, well, quite frankly, if it did, there'd be no way to get this to plug into there where it's supposed to. So, gotta get this into the... Gotta get this to pop into the tank, otherwise you'll end up with a leak there. So I want to poke that in, but I don't want to use anything sharp. You'd think with all the oil in there it'd be easy to poke this in, but it's not. Got it. And now this pops in here. And then really what finishes that seal is just that is kept captive in there by the handle when the handle's reinstalled. Use one of these paper towels to try and soak up the oil that's collected in the bottom here. Mainly because I don't want that oil to keep leaking out and make me think that I've got a leak in the oil system. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and wrestle the handle assembly back on, since this is, again, like I said, this is really what holds this in there by the looks of it. Alright, battery died yesterday when I was working on this thing on the camera. Not sure why, but I say I'm not sure why because I had supposedly just fully charged them. But anyways, I was just in the middle of wrestling this handle back on. I think I'm going to throw some gloves on today. I got way too oily yesterday. I can't remember if these are supposed to come out and stick out like this one is now, or are they supposed to be recessed like this? Because I know there's plastic plugs that plug in here. I think maybe I've got this one in too far. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like that and that. And this one should be in a little further too. Alright, there we go. That's how that's supposed to be. Now, I've got that straightened out. Cripes. All right. Now I need to install the new deal here. So this goes on and meshes with that gear on the oil pump. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to compare the new one to the old one. And it does appear like maybe this is a little bit shorter on this original one than on this one. And I put the bearing back on, this little spacer, and the clutch drum. This drive sprocket is an integral part of the clutch drum on this model. On some chainsaws you can replace this sprocket separate from this when it wears. Not this one. Okay, so installing this, you have to make sure that this line right here, which indicates where this little slot is right here, lines up with where the that wire that sticks up from that newly installed worm gear is. And install this washer and this clip. Okay, now I'm already sure these passages are clean from the last time I worked on this, so it's curious how much oil is left in here. Quite a bit leaked out. Still enough in there that should work. Alright, let me get some more paper towels, clean the oil off the bench in this thing. I don't have any way to hook onto this and spin this other than by hand like that. I don't think it's going to do it. I'm surprised the oil isn't coming out of there. Wait for a break in the rain and take it outside and fire it up. Gotta get the linkage for the throttle hooked back up. Just in case somebody out there is reassembling one of these and can't remember how the spring goes, the long part of the spring clips underneath the safety catch, okay, and the spring goes on this large diameter here, and the other side of the spring hooks on the back side right here where my finger's going. So that creates the situation where once this is all put together, you won't be able to pull the trigger unless this is depressed. There we go. See, I can't push. If you've got this assembled correctly, you can't pull the trigger. It's locked out unless you're depressing this tab on the top here. It's a safety feature. Okay, that's all working properly. And this has to be in the full start position before you can get this cover on. It should just about do it. Alright, if I still have gas in here, so this is a break in the rain, which for all I know might be even right now. I'll take a look outside and no, fuel tank's dry. I'm gonna have to put fuel in it. So let me see if I can't take this outside, put some fuel in it, and run it, see if we can't get oil to start pumping out of this. And again, the oil comes out of this tiny hole right here and fills this slot, and gets into a hole in the back side of the bar when the bar is installed. But I can run it just like this with it all apart and see if oil starts pumping out of there. Pumping oil now. You can see the oil has filled that slot right there and it's coming out at a pretty good clip. Alright, that's good enough for now. Put the bar back on. Now that I can see a film of oil in the bar, I'm going to readjust the chain tension. Alright, the oil seemed to be pumping out pretty well out of the out of the port here now, but it didn't seem to be transferring to the bar and chain. So I took it apart again, and there was a little bit of gunk clogging the hole on the bar. So I cleaned that out, put it back together, and just gave it another test run, and it seems to be working now. I'm going to have to run it a little longer to make sure. The other thing I did was I pre-lubed the bar before I started running it, because it takes a little time for that oil to migrate all the way through there. But now you can see it seems like it's a lot slicker than it was, and it doesn't have that additional whine noise when you're running it. There was an additional noise that shouldn't be there. I don't know if that came through on the video, but that noise was kind of a dead giveaway that it was binding and not running freely. So I'll have to run it. Like I said, I'll run it for a while and make sure, but I think I've got this straightened out.